Was picking up some hay out in the boondocks. Don't have very good reception, but wanted to finish my thought. And I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I'm not saying it's have 50 people in your church or anything like that. Don't get hung up on the number. The point is, the more people you have in a building, the less effectively you can one another. The less effectively you can edify one another and mutually benefit one another, because we were intended to live life in community with God's people, and that's what church is for. And these churches that get together in 50, 100, 500 people, it's not as easy as we see in the New Testament when they were meeting in homes, in small groups, in small assemblies. And they didn't have all these problems we have today of, like I said, mortgages or disconnect between church members. Just that one change could fix a lot of problems, I believe, if we would just follow the Bible model of church, and that is small assemblies meeting house to house. And so we see, people building new buildings because their church is growing. It's growing in numbers, but is it growing in spiritual maturity? Is it actually growing to a more perfect man, as Paul put it? Or is it just growing in numbers? And I believe that a church cannot grow in numbers in one assembly, because you see, the church in Acts that grew by thousands, it met house to house. What does that tell us? It tells us they weren't meeting by the thousands. They were meeting by the tens and 20s in people's homes, in small groups where they could minister one to another. But if you have that modern mentality, that construct of church as a place where you go and sit in pews facing one direction, listening to one man for 45 minutes and then you leave, then none of that makes any sense, and you could just completely read over that and miss it. But when you read through the book of Acts and the New Testament, you find that the church, whether it numbers in the thousands or the hundreds, should meet in small groups. And if we do that, if we follow God's methods, God's model, you don't find these problems of big, hefty mortgages and church splits and, church squabbles over building projects and all that nonsense. We don't need any of that. Just be the church, wherever you may find yourself, wherever you may assemble, with whomever you may be. Be the church. Edify one another. Bear one another's burdens. Build each other up to that more perfect man. And that's what I wish we'd get back to. But yeah, I believe the churches are just too small, or too big rather. They're just too big. They need to get small again in order to get effective. If you want your church to grow, it needs to shrink. Just a thought for you on this Tuesday morning. God bless.